if this is the career for you, then even if there isn't a demand for lawyers, you're going to make it work.
Hello and welcome to episode 466 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Nathan Fox. With me is Ben Olson. We are the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. You can be LSAT famous by sharing news or asking questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. Go to lsatdemon.com/free to sign yourself up for a free account. Check out all the amazing resources that we have on LSAT Demon. You'll also start getting invited to free classes once a month. The next one coming up is called Guilty or Not Guilty, Logical Reasoning with Kevin. That's on Tuesday, August 13th. Again, go to lsatdemon.com/free if you would like to sign up for that class. That class will teach you how to properly attack arguments in logical reasoning the demon way. We've got a news item here at the top of the agenda. This is coming to us from Reuters. And once again, Karen Sloan, who is apparently the only reporter on the law school beat. The headline is "Good Times Won't Last for Law Grads, Warns Job Tracking Group." I didn't know the good times were even here. Did you?
No, I don't. I mean, I guess the economy generally has been a good economy for people trying to find jobs. So I guess that's true for law grads as well.
Okay, cool. So you want to read these highlights from the Reuters article?
Yeah, certainly. So it says new law school graduates crushed the entry-level job market in 2023, posting record high employment rates and salaries. According to just published data from the National Association for Law Placement, that's NALP. We've definitely talked about NALP before.
Fairly reliable source as far as I understand it. I've referred people to NALP many times. If you want to check out salaries, they do reports on law schools and placement in big law, placement in federal clerkships. You can get a pretty good sense of what kinds of outcomes you have at various law schools by using those NALP reports. Anyway, what happened with this latest NALP report?
It says the class of 2023 graduates are likely to be the final benefactors of the talent wars, said NALP Executive Director Nikia Gray in a report released Thursday. Many 2023 law graduates were hired in 2021 and 2022 when busy law firms were competing fiercely for new associates and lateral attorney hires.
So those are those OCI jobs, right? Where you're in your 2L summer, or I guess it's in your 2L year, you have OCI interviews. And then in your 2L summer, you work at a firm that eventually hires you. Here it's saying that those were, that's what those are, right? Those are hired as a summer, continuing on into an associate job. And apparently people who graduated in 2023 had a lot of those OCI jobs. Was OCI a big thing when you were in law school? Because when I was in law school, I graduated 2011. So 2008 through 2011, there was very little OCI. It was a down period where it was really hard to even get an OCI interview, and people were desperate to work for free. When I was in law school. Apparently that changed 12 years later. How about when you were in school?
I don't know. I remember a lot of OCI things happening. So I don't know. There
was OCI, whether people were getting those jobs or not is unclear. Okay.
But one thing here, it says lateral attorney hires. So that's for attorneys who are later, right? They're at a firm and they want to go to another firm. So they're going over. So this isn't just OCI, but for whatever reason, I guess there was huge demand in 2021 and 2022.
Okay.
The article continues, but law firm recruiting activity hit an 11-year low this fall as firms made fewer summer associate offers to law students amid lower demand for transactional practices. Okay.
Wow. So changed drastically, overnight, it seems like it changed, right? Because trying to say that the 2023 graduates are the final benefactors, and then already we're now at an 11-year low this fall. Interesting.
Okay. I mean, what I keep thinking of is we had this we had so much money pumped into the economy, right, in response to COVID, that probably just drove up, hey, businesses have cheap money. They're going to go ahead and try to invest that. That means making deals. When they say transactional practices, I'm thinking of contracts. And so then attorneys get pulled in to make those contracts. And then as soon as that money got more expensive with higher interest rates, people are like, wait a sec, maybe we won't do those projects. And these things dry up maybe overnight.
Yep.
It says the law class of 2024 is also about 12% larger than its predecessor, meaning there are significantly more newly minted JDs now competing for jobs. Okay, so the supply is going up and the demand is going down. Yep, maybe these good times aren't going to last.
That happens. And that also happened to me when I was in the biggest class ever at the time at Hastings, my alma mater. And it had it's just this never ending boom and bust cycle. The law schools get greedy and expand, because they have essentially unlimited capacity. I mean, all they have to do is just have the classroom seats, because what difference does it make if you have 80 people in a lecture or 100 people in a lecture or 120 people in the lecture? Really makes no difference, right? A few more exams to grade, but that's it. So they just keep, they'll expand the classes as long as they think they can profitably sell seats. Then we have the resulting inevitable crash in lawyer jobs. So over the next year or two, Ben, what would we anticipate? Like, what are the next news reports going to be?
Yeah, it's harder to get a job. People are graduating, they're not getting jobs. So then that slows the demand for people to go into law school, but it's like a delayed cycle, right? It's going to take 5 years for all this to have any sort of an effect.
Right. Law schools start losing accreditation or being threatened with losing accreditation. A school or two will go bankrupt. There'll be some consolidation of law schools. Some schools will, probably all schools will have to contract their class sizes. We've seen this. We're old enough now that we've seen this happen a few times. So sorry, bad news for those of you who are graduating in 2024. It's unfortunate because you can never really predict where we'll be in the cycle 4 or 5 years from now, right? And most people listening to this podcast are probably taking the LSAT now or thinking about taking the LSAT, which means that they really aren't going to be graduating from law school until 2028? So we don't really know what the market will be. It could be a continuation of this low, or it could be a reversal, and maybe the economy will be going like gangbusters again for lawyers. Who knows?
Yeah, well, what's funny about talking about this is that it actually doesn't matter at all. Because if you're making a decision to go to law school because there's a demand for lawyers,
right,
you're 100% going for the wrong reason.
Yep.
And if this is the career for you, then even if there isn't a demand for lawyers, you're going to make it work because you're going to rise above and be a part of that group that does. There is still some demand, obviously. We're just talking about fluctuations at the, margins. So,
yeah, terrible reason to, you need to be thinking about what you want to do every day for the rest of your life. And sure, it's important to think about, okay, is this a lucrative career for me to get into? But these kinds of short-term fluctuations do not determine the value of the career. If you have done legal work and you know what lawyers do and you think that you want to do that type of work, then you should pursue law no matter what the current market is for lawyers.
Yep.
On the other hand, if you've never done this kind of work, you should probably do some investigations before you dive into law school. If you've done the work and hated it, you should probably find something else, no matter how good the market is for lawyers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen Sloan. You seem like you're doing a great job out there reporting on law schools and the legal industry. We say your name a lot on this podcast. We would love to get you on the show at some point. If you wanted to come and talk about any of these issues, I'm sure you would be able to enlighten us on all sorts of various issues.
Yep. All right. This next one is from Sammy.
Sammy says, when in the cycle would you consider it too late to apply? October, December, February? I'm planning on having all the application materials ready to go, with the LSAT as the final piece of the puzzle. So it would really come down to timing. I would love to hear your thoughts about application timings, especially about after hearing about that study a few episodes ago. Thanks for keeping it real and accessible. Best, Sammy. Yeah, it was 6 episodes ago, Thinking LSAT episode 458. We talked about the costs of applying late. That's the title of that episode. The
Yeah.
costs of applying late. If you want to hear us talk about how much it costs you in terms of your admissions chances and your scholarship offers if you apply late, it's fairly dire, isn't it, Ben?
It is. Yeah. I can't remember the exact numbers, but every month you're adding a half a point or subtracting a half a point from your LSAT score effectively or something like that.
I think people are thinking about it the wrong way. Instead of how late is too late to apply, people should just be thinking about when is the optimal time to apply and just do that.
Yeah, because you can always do it next year.
Right. Next September will be here just momentarily. I was trying to explain this to my 8-year-old stepdaughter that I have now. And I was trying to explain to her that time passes quicker when you're older. And that, like a year or two makes no difference. We were looking at we were driving by a city college that was right by the beach. And I was like, in 10 years, you could go to college right here. What do you think about that? And she's like, well, not 10 years, because what if I skip a grade or what if I stay back a grade? Then it wouldn't be 10 years. And I'm like, well, okay. So 9 years or 11 years, like, it's the same. It's the exact same for someone who's my age, right?
Yeah.
For her, that's like a dramatic difference. For applicants, I really would like to get across this idea that there's little to no value to going this cycle, and the next cycle will just be here in the blink of an eye, really. So why would you even be asking this question, right? I mean, I'm not yelling at Sammy for asking the question, but with a longer term perspective, you wouldn't be asking the question, when is it too late to apply? Can I get away with October? Can I get away with December? Can I get away with February? And instead, you would be asking, what's the right way to apply to law school? When should I apply to law school?
Yeah.
And the answer is, if I were footing the bill or if Ben were footing the bill, we would say, just wait till September. Just apply in September. Everyone can always apply in September. It's not hard. You just wait until you have your best LSAT and all your application materials ready to go. You look at the calendar and you go, is it September? No? Okay. Is it September? No? Okay. Is it September? Yes, it is. Okay, good. Now it's time to apply. I mean, it's just it'll be here.
You just wait for it. It's the year is not linear. It's a circle. So the circle's coming back. Just wait till it comes back, and then
Like, how many fucking birthdays, Ben, have you had? How many Christmases? It's like always the 4th of July. When I lived in San Francisco, it was like always Fleet Week. The Blue Angels are flying overhead. It's like, there's the Blue Angels again. And it's just like, it's always Fleet Week.
Yeah.
It's always because even when it's not Fleet Week, just hold on. Just wait a second. Like next time you look up in the air, the Blue Angels are going to be flying over your head. It's going to be Fleet Week again. So don't worry about it. Like September's coming. Just apply in September. Apply broadly. And the most important part that I think Sammy is missing here, notice what he says, right? And he introduces the puzzle analogy.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to extend a little bit.
Sure.
Sammy says, the LSAT is the final piece of the puzzle. Dude, it's like you're putting together the middle of the puzzle first.
Yeah.
Or rather, you're putting the corner pieces on last.
Yeah.
The LSAT is 2 of the 4 corners.
Mm-hmm.
Your GPA being the other 2 corners.
Yep.
Right? I mean, you need to put the corners and the edge together first if you want to be efficient about how you're going to solve this puzzle. And instead, Sammy's like, I'm not going to worry about the corners. I'm not going to worry about the edge pieces. I'm just going to work on all this other shit in the middle, putting together like a vast piece of blue, solid blue ocean or whatever, putting together all the hard pieces without like putting the most important foundational pieces in place first. So it really, like, Sammy, it seems like you just did it backward. And our advice for all applicants is you don't even need to worry about any of the application pieces until you're all done or almost done with the LSAT. Not only that, but I think Sammy is probably stepping on his own feet by thinking about the application cycle, by thinking about all these other application materials. Now he's putting pressure on his August LSAT or his September
100%.
LSAT.
I mean, just think about the analogy. It's if his LSAT is the final piece, then that means everything is like forcing the LSAT into that slot. So now you've got to fit it in by October or December or whatever date you had hoped we would give you. And then at that point, you're done. So now you're making the LSAT subservient to other pieces of the application.
Yeah, and it's like he's just, well, I got to reach in the box and this has to be the final piece. Here it is. And then he just like tries to put it in there. It doesn't fit. Oh, but everything else is ready to go. He's like getting out a hammer and bashing it in there to make it fit or whatever. And it's just a recipe for ending up with, I mean, you got two things you could do. One, you could end up applying with a subpar LSAT. Two,
that is almost certainly what's going to happen, right? If we said, hey, your deadline is Halloween, you're like, oh, okay, I know Halloween. I got that. That's the end of October. Okay. As soon as you're not going to, you're just going to squeeze in the LSAT before then, and then you're going to apply.
Yeah. Have one attempt at it instead of 5 attempts at it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, it's almost guaranteed that someone who's asking this question is going to end up not applying with the best LSAT they possibly can, or they're going to end up forcing a December application or something. The answer is you want to flip this whole thing. Make it a buyer's market. Apply broadly, early in the cycle, as early as possible. And for most people, that means in September. So instead of thinking about the application cycle and having your personal statement, letters of recommendation, transcripts, all that other shit, optional essays, having all that stuff ready to go, just put all that stuff aside and work on the LSAT. When you're happy with your practice test scores, take the official LSAT. If your official LSAT score represents the best you can achieve, then you're done. If not, you should have 1, 2, 3, or 4 backups on your calendar, and you should feel comfortable exhausting all 5 attempts if necessary. Then, and only then, should you worry about applying. And it's just like, okay, so next September, I will apply. And if that means you have to take a gap year or 2 or 3, so be it. I promise you that 5 years into your legal career, you won't even remember that you took the gap years. I want to refer everybody back to Thinking LSAT episode 458 if you want to hear more about the costs of applying late. And let's move on to this next email from Cleo. It says, not creative enough for must be true.
Okay. Generally, creativity is not a good thing for must be true. So I'm curious what Cleo has to say here. Yeah. Cleo writes, hi, LSAT Demon Team. I have a problem that I think a lot of people might have as well. At least I hope. LOL. But I find myself faltering with must be true frequently because I'm not creative enough. For open questions like most strongly supported, paradox, and strengthened. Okay, so just to clarify right there, most strongly supported is not an open question. It's closed. It's a closed record question. You have to figure out what must be true based on what was given to you, or at least supported what was questions, most strongly supported.
Supported questions are basically just must be trues. I mean, you don't even have to have any different method. You just look for the one that's proven true.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't find one that is strictly proven true, that's okay if it's a supported question, because it doesn't say which one must be true. It says which one is most strongly supported. So again, ideally, yes, you would find one that is strictly proven true by the facts. And you often do. Maybe more often than not, you do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really common that you're going to find an answer that is strictly proven by those facts. But if you don't, okay, take the next best thing. Take the one that is closest to proven. But we're looking for safe, boring, obvious, conservative on a supported question. And it is distinctly opposite from paradox, strength, and weaken, all the open record questions.
Yeah. Cleo continues, for questions like most strongly supported, paradox, and strengthen, okay, which you're mixing groups there,
Yeah.
I find myself having no problem at all. However, something about must be true being closed, yet requiring creativity, makes my brain explode.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, I mean, literally the way I teach must be true is that I tell people the answer here has to be proven by these facts. So nothing different, nothing extra.
Yeah.
It's not about creativity at all. It's about what are these premises, and if they link together in an obvious way, I mean, in a clear, I shouldn't say obvious, but if they link together in in a logically acceptable way, then yes, you can infer things from those facts. But I don't see that as being a creative process at all. That's a deductive process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And trying to understand what Cleo means by creativity is, an exercise in and of itself. But if there is any sort of creativity, it's going to happen with a most strongly supported question in a way it's not going to happen with a must be true question. That's where you might go a little, okay, I'm going to go a little bit beyond the tech. Like this isn't 100% proven, but it's sure damn close. Maybe that's creativity, but that's not happening. It must be true. So your brain is exploding right now because you're forcing it to do contradictory things.
Yeah.
Cleo continues, something about having the restrictions of a closed question inhibits my creativity from thinking of possible scenarios that could be the key prediction, aha moment, detrimental to answering the question.
Detrimental? She means instrumental.
Instrumental. Yeah.
Okay.
I usually am able to come a lot of contradictions here in this question. I usually am able to come up with open question predictions quick and easy, but for some reason I just stare at the must be true stims, okay, passages for way too long, usually still don't end up understanding, then pick the bait answer. Any suggestions for creativity for must be true questions other than other closed type questions? I'm hearing a lot of like buzzwords in here, stimulus, bait answer. These are terms we never use. Creativity, we never use that even in strengthen questions.
Nope.
I wonder if Cleo, you're just getting bad information from somewhere and you can just let this all go and just ask yourself, what answer has to be true? Does this have to be true given what I was told? You say something here that's really kind of, I think, revealing. You said you stare, where was it? You stare at this passages for way too long, usually still don't end up understanding. You don't have any business going into the question, let alone the answers, if you don't understand the passage. The game's already over at that point. Right. So what you need to do is stop and just give up on trying to finish and work on understanding the passage.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no substitute for understanding. I think I spotted maybe one other thing here, that Cleo contrasts her ability to come up with open question predictions quick and easy, but can't do the same thing for must be trues. Well, I don't really always make predictions on must be trues. I mean, I do understand each premise, each fact that they gave me. I'm going to understand all that. And if the facts link together in an obvious way, then I'm going to follow those breadcrumbs. But I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, okay, it's a must be true question, so I have to be able to predict the answer from these facts. That's not it at all. On must be true questions, I probably spend less time trying to be creative and come up with some kind of a prediction and more time just going, okay, well, which one of these 5 is proven by these facts? And so I think I do must be trues much more by process of elimination than I do other question types. On a strengthen question or a weaken question or a paradox question, an open record question, if I see an argument, I'm going to spend time creatively attacking the conclusion of that argument. If I see a paradox, I'm going to spend time creatively thinking about the paradox and going, well, maybe this could explain it, or maybe that could explain it. okay, now let me go into the answers because I have a good prediction or two. On a must be true question, if I didn't see a conclusion and if I didn't see a paradox, then I frequently am going to just go, all right, so no argument here, no paradox here. It's just probably just a must be true, right? And if I had spotted a connection as I was reading, I would have made that connection. But I'm not necessarily sitting there going, oh, it's a must be true, so I should be able to predict the answer. No, because the correct answer could be a restatement of one of the premises. It could be an aspect of one of the premises, or it could be a connection between two or more of the premises. But there's a lot of things that must be true based on those facts, right? I mean, the correct answer could restate any part of those facts.
And it could restate any combination of those facts, right? You could combine the first and second fact, the second and third, the first and third, whatever. So I agree with you 100% on that. I don't want Cleo to hear that though and think, okay, well, I didn't understand the passage, but I don't need to make a prediction, so I'm just going to keep going, right? Like that's fundamentally the problem here.
Sorry, say that again. What's fundamentally the problem? That she didn't understand the passage in the first place.
Yeah. And I agree.
So.
Once she does understand it, a lot of times it doesn't, you're not going to sit there and then creatively think of the 7 different things you might be able to conclude on the basis of those facts.
Yeah.
So I agree with that 100%. But we also just don't want to move on because now, we don't have to make predictions as much and must be true. So I'm going to move on. No,
well, yeah, but you have to understand it, but you don't have to necessarily sit there predicting every possible answer for an MBT. Like, what if I were to say, X equals 2, Y equals 3, Z equals 4, which one of the following must be true? You're not going to sit there going, well, X plus Y plus Z equals 9. That must be true.
Yeah.
And X plus Y equals 5 and Y minus X is 1. And, you're not going to you could sit there all day calculating all the things that must be true based on those givens.
Yeah.
Instead, you would just look at A and go, okay, is this proven by those facts? No. Okay, what's B? Is that proven by those facts? No. And then you would find one that is proven by those facts.
And what I'm sure both of us would do is you'd see those and you go, oh, those are numbers. I could add those together. I could subtract them. I could multiply them. But then you wouldn't go any further than that. You're just recognizing what's possible there. And then you're going into the question.
Yeah, and there's a wide range of things that could be proven from those facts that I just gave you, right? I mean, the correct answer could say Z is greater than X.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know, there's literally infinite combinations of things that I could come up with that would be a correct answer there. So there's no, if I understand the facts and if I don't see an obvious link between the facts, then answer the question. Just do process of elimination and answer the question. I have a feeling that might be the solution here to Cleo, with the one caveat, though, that you do have to be able to understand each of the facts independently. And if there are connections, if there are obvious connections, you need to make those connections. I'll give you another example of that would be like, if you're in Manhattan, you're in New York City, Mr. X is in Manhattan. Which one of the following must be true?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you just said if you're in Manhattan, you're in New York City, and you said Mr. X is in Manhattan.
It'd be foolish not to put those together.
Yeah, Mr. X is in New York City is the obvious, but that's what I call following the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And you do need to make that type of prediction, Cleo, but I would not ever refer to that as creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's just following boring, obvious baby steps. It's really not a creative process. I hope this has been helpful for Cleo.
This next one is from Max.
Max says, hi guys. In a past episode, you cautioned against flagging questions, and I took this to mean you shouldn't flag a question as challenging midsection. Guess and come back if you have time at the end. I agree.
Yeah. Okay.
You shouldn't do that. What should you do instead?
Give it your best effort. Pick an answer. Go to the next question.
Yeah. Get as close as you can to solving it. It might turn out to be easier than you thought. Or, maybe it is an actually hard one. That's okay. Do the work while you're there, though. Don't flag it, guess on it, guess randomly. I mean, you've already read it. Surely you can eliminate a couple answers. I don't know. Why not just keep doing that work until you're done with it?
Yep.
Have I used the analogy of when I was a little kid, I used to have to go work on my grandpa's farm. And one of the things that we would be doing is hauling and stacking wood.
Hmm.
So I've got like cut logs from the almond trees in the orchard.
Hmm.
And I'm a little kid and I'm lazy. And I'm trying to carry these logs into the barn to stack them. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to carry it to here and put it down and then go get another one out of the tractor and carry it and put it here and put it down. And then later I'll come back and pick up the log and carry it the rest of the way into the barn. And I just distinctly remember my dad saying, you've already got it in your hand. It's extra work to put it down and pick it back up. It's going to be much more efficient if you just carry it all the way and put it down in the barn.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what we need to do when we see a challenging question midway through the section. Right? I'm not debate. I mean, the LSAT is generally easy and the question is probably easier than you think it is. That said, there are some hard ones here and there on the test, and you could be experiencing it as hard, whether or not it's actually hard. So you're having a hard time with a question. Fine. But you don't want to put it aside, try to forget about it, move on to another question, and then have to come back and relitigate all that stuff again, or like reread. You'd have to, at a minimum, you'd have to reread it to remember what was there.
Yeah.
Why don't you just finish the job now, even if it's an imperfect job? This isn't guessing. This is get as close as you can to a solution, pick what you think is the best answer, and then you can just let go of it entirely. The vast majority of students should not have time to finish the section and come back to any questions. I mean, the vast majority of students don't score 175 or higher. And only people scoring 175 or higher should really think about finishing. Because it's easier to score 170 without finishing than it is to score 170 by forcing yourself to finish. So I would strongly recommend that Max and everybody else not flag questions because they're difficult. Instead, just finish the work and let go of it entirely so that you're not weighed down by those thoughts as you work on the remainder of the section. Anyway, Max continues. That's how I've been doing my LR and RC from the start. I go through the whole section, and for questions I wasn't sure about, I usually have 2 to 5 minutes to try them again. Is this bad form? Let me know what you would do, because I've been plateauing at 2 to 5 wrong per LR and RC. Best, Max.
Yeah. Stop doing this, Max. Just start going through the section and plan on not finishing. Plus, 2 to 5 minutes to do multiple questions is not enough time. And yet you're like planning to do that. I would just do questions one at a time, straight through the section, and then plan on not finishing. And then when the section is over, finish the section.
Max says I'm missing 2 to 5 wrong. I'm plateauing at 2 to 5 wrong on LR and RC. If you're ever missing 5, it indicates that you should never be finishing the section.
Yep.
You're not accurate enough, Max. That's your problem, is that you're not disciplined enough about solving each question. And I really would think about this if I were you. If you flag a question, then there's a weight to that. Like you're now burdened by that. Like you flag number 16. You're burdened by that as you work on 17 and 18 and 19 and 20. There's still this, oh, that one.
There's
that
this
one
tally.
about the bees, and it's like, even if it's only 0.5% of your brain capacity, you are still anchored on, I got to go back and answer number 16.
Totally.
Or, oh, that one about the flower, the dinosaurs. That one's confused. Like part of your brain is still trying to solve it.
Yeah.
And you're competing against people who are have better form, who have gotten as close as they're going to get. Maybe they got it right, maybe they got it wrong, but they got as close as they were going to get. They chose an answer and then they forgot about it. And they have 100% of their brain capacity working on number 17 to get as close as they can get to solving number 17. They commit to an answer, they forget about it, and they keep moving forward. And that's how you get your best results on each question that you attempt. Eventually, Max, you might only complete 23 questions in the section, but you'll get all 23 of them right. Then you'll get number 24 or 25 right 1 out of 5 times in random guessing. And you would already be scoring better than your best case on average by only doing 23 questions with perfect accuracy instead of trying to do the whole section and have time to go back and still have shoddy accuracy.
Totally.
Anything more for Max?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that you're skipping over the opportunities that are going to be the most helpful for you to make progress.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're going through a section, you get to question 12 and you find it challenging. So you cut that process short in an effort to get points. And so you say, okay, I'm going to skip 12. I'll do 13, 14, whatever. Right when the going gets tough, you skip town, you leave. And that's where you need to grow. You said you're plateauing. Okay, stop avoiding the things that are going to make you a better test taker. And those are the questions that are challenging for you.
Also, it might not be that big of a deal. You might be, it's just more efficient. You might be 10 seconds away from actually unlocking the question and seeing how easy it really is.
Yeah.
You've invested time already, and now you're going to just throw that away by guessing and moving on and coming back when another 10, 20, 30 seconds might actually get you there to get that point and to make the progress, as Ben is saying, to actually understanding the test better. Nice. Thanks, Max. Next one it comes from Anonymous. We're going to call this Pearls versus Turds. This is the segment of the show where we take a bit of received wisdom from the internet and we decide whether it's actually wisdom or a pearl of wisdom or a turd. The subject says, combining 2 halves of an LR section. I see Ben making funny faces. I think Ben already has decided that this is a turd.
I think it's almost certainly going to be one, but let's take a look. Hi, I've been using the Demon and have been practice testing in the mid to high 170s for my last 4 practice tests. Finally, after switching to the Demon a month ago, after being stuck in the high 160s for months. Okay, great. I'm glad that we might have been able to help you there. I'm preparing for the August/September LSAT and saw a strategy on a previous platform that suggested, to help prepare for test day, to combine the second halves of 2 logical reasoning sections, creating something called a superset, that's in quotes, to test your skills on the harder half of the test. What are your thoughts on this strategy? Thanks for all your help.
Turd. Dumb. I think it's dumb. The vast majority of your points on the LSAT are going to come from easy questions. And not only that, but you have to learn how to reliably dominate the easy parts of the test. You have to learn how to grind your way through the easy questions without falling into any traps. You have to learn to eliminate wrong answers confidently on the easier questions, because that's where you get to go fast, not by trying to go fast, but by knowing that wrong answers are wrong. If all you're doing is harder questions, then you're going to experience the test as being more difficult than it actually is, and you're not going to get the reps on the very important easy questions. Wouldn't you say, Ben, that the easier questions are actually more important than the harder questions?
Oh, there's more of them. Yeah, for sure.
And they're at the beginning of every section. They set the tone for how you're going to perform. You need to be assembling long strings of correct answers at the beginning of each section. This superset idea is like you start off and right away you've got hard questions in the first 5, which is just not the experience that you will have on the day of the test.
Yep. And it creates this weird like signals to your brain because you're going through a section that's harder. And so there's incentives to you're not going to finish, and you're sending this message to yourself that you can't finish, or who knows? It's just bizarre. If you want to do more harder questions, just drill. The funny thing about drilling is Baby Demon would just give you questions at your skill level or above your skill level. And then we figured out that doing level 4 or 5 questions back to back forever isn't helpful. So it got a little smarter, and now it gives you random difficulty questions, especially more frequently as you get better, because you need to keep your skill set fresh in all difficulty levels.
It's important not to send yourself the message that the LSAT is hard. And this strategy seems designed to like practice having a hard time on the LSAT. We don't want you struggling on the LSAT. We want you to experience the LSAT as fun and easy, because it is fun and easy. Every student at the beginning of every section should plan on assembling a long string of correct answers. 1 through
Totally.
5, right, every single time for everybody. At a slightly higher level, 1 through 10, right, every time for everybody. At a slightly higher level, now we're talking about 160 or 165 already. The first 15 right every single time, because those questions are fun and easy. The right answers are right, the wrong answers are wrong, and it should just feel clear and straightforward. And yeah, it's yet another turd to me. I updated the scoreboard already. In the 10 years of Thinking LSAT podcast, we now have 29 pearls, 80 turds, and 26 ties. There's a little bit of selection bias going on here, because our listeners, I think, sometimes send in pearls versus turds candidates for comedy purposes. But this seems like it was genuine. Someone was like, hey, is this a good idea?
Yeah.
And no, I think Ben and I agree that clearly this is not something that we would recommend you do. And in fact, we would recommend that you don't do this. If you have a pearl versus turd candidate, you can let us know at thinkinglsat.com or find us on social at LSATdemon.
This next email is from Anonymous. The subject is boosting undergraduate GPA.
Hello, I have been using LSAT Demon since April and have seen a night and day improvement on the LSAT. Currently, I have a 2.82 and have 22 credits left to complete my bachelor's. Even if I were to ace the rest of my credits, I would not be happy with my UGPA of around 3.1. Yeah, but 3.1 is a hell of a lot better than 2.8. I mean, we have a growth mindset here, right? We're not going to beat you up for your 2.8. We would, though, hold you to a pretty high standard and say you shouldn't be studying for the LSAT at all if you're not currently getting straight A's. So, you need to get that UGPA up to a 3.1.
Yeah. Well, and there's two things going on there, right? You're bringing your UGPA up from a 2.8 to a 3.1, which is astronomically better than a 2.8. But also, you now have this string of A's that you can actually point to. It doesn't It doesn't matter for the 509 reports, so there is a loss there. But look, you have to say something to these schools. I can do it now, and you have to. It's so much easier to show that in the record than to claim it. Like, oh, I'm actually a better student. Just wait and see until I get to your school.
Yep. Anonymous continues, I have recently looked into pursuing a minor in English, which would require 21 more credits before graduating, giving me 43 credits to boost my UGPA. If I were to get all A pluses for those remaining credits, I would end up with a 3.23. Do you believe that the boost to my GPA would be worth the extra cost of attending undergrad for potentially a year longer? I'm aiming to hold off on applying to law school until I have at least a mid 170 LSAT score. Additionally, I was curious to see how much of a soft boost to my application would it be if I were to have a semester of my grades forgiven. Without this semester of grades, which I believe I have grounds to have forgiven, my UGPA would be a 3.57.
Wow.
Would that be a soft boost?
No, that's a hard boost because it's changing your actual UGPA.
Now, we should caveat that. Can you use caveat as a verb like that?
I don't know.
Anyway, one word of caution here, that grade forgiveness by your undergraduate institution might not be honored by LSAC when they calculate your LSAC official UGPA. If those grades still show up on your transcript, LSAC's going to count them. So your school might say, we have grade forgiveness and we won't put those scores into your GPA on your transcript. But LSAC doesn't give a shit about the GPA on your transcript. LSAC calculates your GPA based on the grades that are on your transcript. So if you went to a school that lets you retake classes, for example, and then ignores the lower grade in favor of the higher grade when they calculate your GPA, bad news for you is that LSAC's going to count both of those grades. So if you're going to bother with something like a forgiveness or rehabilitation or whatever, there's different programs at different schools. If you're going to bother with those programs, you should probably make sure that the grades are actually going to be taken off your transcript so that they just don't even appear. It's as if you never took them on your transcript. Anything more that we need to say about that?
Or something along those lines, right? Maybe they leave the classes on, but they turn them into pass-fail. I mean, different policies, right? Okay, we just need to get that freaking C off of that class. If you can get the entire class off
the transcript. Yeah. So be careful about that. But I mean, it is a hard boost. Obviously a hard boost if you go from a 2.82 to a 3.23 to potentially a 3.57.
Yeah.
I mean, now you're getting into the realm of 50th percentile GPA at some schools, which makes a big difference. Raising yourself from below their median to above their median always makes a huge difference. It's just your transcript GPA may not reflect what LSAC is going to say your GPA is. And that's the thing that you have to be careful about. What do you think about this idea of spending more time in undergrad, paying for the expense of undergrad, and potentially getting a minor in order to rack up some more A's or A pluses before graduation?
Yeah, so I have a couple of thoughts about that. One, my sense is that it's probably not worth it, but what you do is you put the numbers in the scholarship estimator and you figure out, okay, how much of a difference does this make and how much I'm going to pay for law school? If it does make a difference, then I could easily cover it. If you do this, you don't necessarily have to do it at your university. Yeah. Can you take these classes at a community college for cheaper and then make this actually worth it? Maybe.
That's what I was going to say too. Consider doing this on the cheap. You know, there are places where community college is totally free, or you pay some nominal amount per credit instead of paying $50,000 a year for undergraduate tuition. Yeah. You can just pay, $50 a class or something at your local community college.
Yep.
So consider doing that. Anything more for Anonymous?
No.
Cool. Glad you're thinking about it. Get that GPA sorted out though before you spend more time studying for the LSAT. A single A minus is not worth it here. You really need to have solid A's and A pluses at the end of your undergraduate education here so that you can increase your GPA as much as possible, and so that you also can write that addendum saying my GPA over my last 4 semesters was a 4.0. Next one is from Anonymous. The subject is gaining confidence back after underperforming.
Hi, Ben and Nate. I saw another question on underperforming, and I am in a similar boat where I have scored in the mid 160s with a recent 170 score, even though my practice tests have been in the mid 170s. Okay. I have 2 attempts left. I resonated with other questions sent in about underperforming on the actual test. Despite consistently scoring in the 170s for practice tests prior to all of my exams, I have not been able to get roughly 175 plus on the actual test. I've studied for almost a year and felt confident in the past because I felt fairly capable. However, at this point, it feels like getting past the 170 to scoring 175 on the actual exam is impossible. I'm starting to feel like I truly cannot do it, even though I consistently score in my range on practice tests. Score in your range. I am worried at this point achieving a 175 plus is just out of the question for me. I do feel like I do slow down a little and find myself questioning myself more on the actual test day. Any tips on gaining confidence after underperforming? Is a 175 plus possible for me?
It's absolutely possible because you've been able to do it on your practice tests, and your practice tests don't lie. Those are real LSAT tests. Those are actual LSATs that were administered as the real test in their day.
Mm-hmm.
But you've diagnosed your own problem. You know what you're doing wrong. You say, I feel like I slow down a little and find myself questioning myself more on actual test day. Well, that's your problem. Stop doing that. You're giving the official test too much weight. Notice here that this is happening in multiple ways because Anonymous is saying, can I even do it? Is it even possible? Well, the only reason why they're saying that is because they have underperformed on a couple of official tests.
Yeah,
Very small sample, and they're giving it more weight.
Yeah, more respect, right? They like, oh, that's my actual score. But the 175 scores that I've gotten on practice tests aren't real.
Right.
That's the
You're doing
assumption.
it to yourself.
Yeah.
You're clearly not treating the official tests as just another practice test. You're doing it beforehand by worrying about the official test. You're doing it during the test by slowing down and questioning yourself more than you would on a practice test on your official test. And you're doing it after the test by overweighting the results of your official tests as compared to the results of your practice tests. So it's clear that before, during, and after your official tests, you're just giving the official test too much respect. And you got to flip that. You got to decide that the official test is just another data point. You're going to score something within your range. You're not going to force it. You're not going to try to get, the top of your range. This idea of I have to achieve a 175 plus. Well, I mean, those 170s on your official, that's in your range. And you need to, because those scores do count as part of your range.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you can score a 173, that's a win, right? That seems to be better than what you've currently got on the record. And this insistence on 175 might actually be keeping you from scoring 173 or 174.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say, yes, you can do it. You know this test. You know how to get them right. You know what you're supposed to be doing. Whatever you're doing on the practice tests, you need to replicate that on the official test. And the way you do that is by stopping giving the official test so much weight and so much value. Any tips for how Anonymous might be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, change your belief about what a practice test is. It is an official test that thousands of people took and got scores for. And you did the exact same test under timed conditions.
And you know that this extra, you've been behaving differently on the official tests than you have on your practice tests. You know that slowing down and questioning yourself more on actual test day doesn't work. So stop doing that. You've got to be a little free with it. Now, easier said than done. Okay. I mean, sometimes. Because I know the only time that I ever really perform is I'm a dorky amateur golfer, very mediocre amateur golfer. I play one tournament every year. It's coming up this weekend for me. I play one tournament every year that I really care about. And I play with a buddy of mine who's much better than me. And I want to be a helpful partner. And I want to not, drag the team down. And I just systematically underperform during this golf tournament because I try too hard.
Mm-hmm.
I go out in a practice round and I play well and I make a couple birdies and I make a lot of bogeys, but I play my game and my game is good enough to be helpful. Then I go out there on the official tournament day and I play the exact same golf course, much worse. And I think it's just because I try too hard. I think I slow way down. I think I take extra practice swings. I think I stand there over my putts, like in a way that in a practice round, I would have just stepped up there and banged it.
Mhm.
Maybe it goes in, maybe it doesn't go in.
Yeah.
In the tournament, I like freeze over it and I'm like, like clinched up and I'm like trying so hard that it actually prevents me from being successful. So sounds like that's what Anonymous is doing. How do we let go of that? I don't know. My mantra this weekend is going to be, I'm going to just try to have fun.
Yeah. And I think fundamentally change how you see yourself, right? Even the way you describe this story, it's like, oh, I'm worse than my partner and I'm here to help. It's like, no, see yourself as a better player than you see yourself, because you actually are.
Right.
Like it's funny because it's circular, right? It's like it's a cause and an effect. So you can feel like you're cheating by changing the way you think about it. You're like, oh, I'm not being honest, but it's like, yeah, you are. And if you think that way, then you actually do get better.
Right. I can and do make birdies sometimes, but I can't. I know that I can't force myself to do it. So like no amount of trying harder is going to solve this problem. I've either got it or I don't got it. And I've played golf since I was 10 years old, and I've actually been practicing, which I normally do is like practice a little bit leading up to this tournament. And it helps. Shockingly, practicing helps.
Mm-hmm.
But that work has to happen before the day of the actual performance. And on the day of the actual performance, you got to just be playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Have fun with it. Let it go. You can't try harder than you would on a practice. Like you're not trying all that hard when you hit all these practice shots. You're just hitting the shots. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you hit a lot of good shots as you're practicing because it's not that hard and you've been practicing and you just kind of hit the shot. But when you try like, okay, this is the one, this is going to be the one that I'm going to hit perfectly. Then next thing you know, there's lots of ways that you can dork it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's the thing that I have to do is I just have to go out there and say, all right, look, I've put in the practice. Now this is either going to happen or not happen, but I really can't control it. I just have to like, think it through, make a good decision, hit a good shot, but not, I guess I can't control the outcome.
Yeah.
Do you believe that Anonymous can do it?
I know that Anonymous can do it because Anonymous has done it. Right? The only other thing I would add here is that a lot of times success comes from just like you were saying earlier, right? 10 more seconds, 20 more seconds. Maybe it's one more test. Maybe it's two more tests. There's a vast difference between someone who's done 5 tests and someone who's done 3.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes it just happens in the last 2. Okay, fine. It happened. Don't worry about the fact that it happened in test 5.
And we have many teachers at the Demon who took 4 or 5 attempts. Kaylee was in my class with me last night, and Kaylee on her 4th attempt scored 174.
Yeah.
Well, she's now and forever a 174. That's a 99th percentile score.
Yep. And if she had given up, what would she have had? Did she say what her score was before?
No, no. But I know she started at a 151. So, she made a huge improvement. And if she would have given up, or if she would have stressed out about her first 3 attempts, if she would have discounted her practice test results in favor of, these official scores, and if she would have given them more weight over her practice test results and started to question her abilities, then it could have prevented her from taking it a 4th time, or it could have interfered with her performance on her 4th attempt. And instead, she just decided, hey, I've got to let it go take it again. And yeah, Anonymous, I believe in you. Ben believes in you. We know you can do it because you have done it on your practice tests. But you do have to just do your official test like you do your practice test. And then just kind of trust it and see what the result is.
Maybe we should call all upcoming tests not their month and year, but their number.
Yeah, their practice test number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we would do that if they still released all the tests. They kind of stopped releasing practice tests a while back.
They did. They said they're going to release 1 a year now. So
they used to release. Used to be there was 4 LSATs a year, and LSAC released 3 of them as new practice tests. back in those days, we could have referred to them in advance by their PT number.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're being a little more cagey with it, I guess. They're telling us they're going to release one, but they're not telling us which one. But it is true that, like, what's the highest number PT we have?
158.
158. So yeah, this August LSAT that's coming up is PT 159 as far as we know.
Yep.
And that's how you have to treat it, as it's just another practice test. It's no big deal. It's going to be the exact same as all previous tests. We know that for sure. Right? It's going to be the exact same except for just different.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Like the questions themselves are, yeah, they're different, but they're also testing the exact same shit. And it's always going to be, okay, did you read it carefully enough? Do you know what they're asking you? Do you see how the right answer actually answers that question? That's really the game on the LSAT, and that never changes. So anyway, good luck, Anonymous. I know you can do it.
Yeah.
Word of the week. This is coming to us from a reading comprehension passage. It says, co-educational schools were presented as a bulwark against the traditional gender roles enforced by religious tradition. The word that we're looking at here is bulwark.
I mean, there's context, right? And then there's the word against right after the word bulwark, which strongly suggests it's like a barricade or a countermeasure,
A wall.
or a block. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that it comes to us maybe from shipping or from like boats.
Okay.
I think it's a nautical term.
Okay.
I think a bulwark is maybe a wall inside a boat, like a wall that sections off one part of the boat from another boat. From another part of the boat.
Okay.
So like if part of the boat is flooding or there's a fire or something, the bulwark might protect you from the harm that is in that other part of the boat. And I only say that from just, I don't know, randomly reading that word in various contexts. I've never looked it up. I've certainly never looked at the definition. In this case, yeah, if co-educational schools were presented as a bulwark against traditional gender roles, then it would seem like the co-ed schools are protecting against the traditional gender roles. So I would just put in, when you don't know a word, you just put in thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So co-ed schools were presented as a thing against the traditional gender roles. Well, it sounds like some sort of a protection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a wall. You want to read the definition?
Yeah, let me click on that here. A solid wall-like structure raised for defense. That's definition 1. Number 2 is a strong support or protection. And then number 3 is nautical, the side of a ship above the upper deck, usually used in parallel.
Plural. Usually used in plural.
Plural, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a wall, and it is commonly used in nautical stuff, right? Because it also says as a synonym, a breakwater or a seawall. So you can have a bulwark in your harbor, something protecting part of your harbor from tides or waves or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's some kind of a defensive structure. That's all you're going to need to know. Did you really need to know, do you think, what that word means on this particular reading comprehension passage?
No.
Absolutely not. Could you have just crossed it out and put something there?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure we're just looking at one sentence. If you look at the rest of the passage, I would imagine there's more context clues that suggest, okay, they're trying to counter the gender rules that were enforced by religious tradition. Got it.
Thanks, Eric, for putting that word of the week on our agenda. You can be LSAT famous by asking us questions or sharing news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or find us on the socials at LSATdemon. If you have questions about LSAT Demon, you can email help@lsatdemon.com. Please check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 466 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.